Welcome everyone to Coachology in 20, where we learn coaching concepts in just 20 minutes. And we're back today to continue our last session. So our last session was on rapport builders. We touched upon breakers, but we're going to go into detail today on the 10 most important rapport breakers that we need to be aware of as professional coaches. If you're tuned in, please say hi. Let me know you're here. If you're a new coach, get your tablet ready, your notebook ready, however you like to capture notes, and start to capture what you learn today. And feel free to ask your questions. If you're an experienced coach or professional coach, get your fingertips ready, put your wisdom, your experience in the comments box. I've got questions for you. This will be a bit of a recap, so it'll be good for you to test your knowledge on what I'm sharing with you in each of these sessions every Monday. So we go live every Monday for 20 minutes to learn a new coaching concept. I can see we've got Adele tuned in. Adele, thank you so much for being here. Really wonderful to see you tuned in and back. And please feel free to share your wisdom as we go through today's session. So, 10 rapport breakers for coaches. Before we get started, can we remember any of these? If you're a Coach Your Minds coach that's tuned in, if you're not a Coach Your Minds coach, what rapport breakers have you come across in your experience? What's happened in your coaching sessions where you've accidentally broke rapport? I can imagine we don't do this on purpose. It's not something we want to do on purpose. Rapport is broke by unconsciousness rather than consciousness. Let me know in the comments box. I remember early on in my coaching career, thinking back 8 years ago, I used to break rapport at times with humor. And we're going to talk about humor in just a moment. I'm a person that likes to have a laugh, and a person that likes to be a little bit of witty. So for me, I've actually damaged rapport, and Adele's put that in at the same time through humor. Humor is one that really sits on the fence. It could be a really big and grand rapport builder, but if we ask a wrong question or do a wrong joke at the wrong time, then that can break rapport as well. I can see we've got Lawrence tuned in. Lawrence, thank you so much for being here. What sport do you coach? So this is not about sports. This is about transformational coaching, coaching within organizations. This is for those who want to help transform the lives of others and nothing to do with sport. So why are rapport breakers important? Why have we got a session on this today? Why are we looking at 10 rapport breakers, in 20 minutes? Why do we think it's important to note this? So last week we went through the rapport builders, ways in which we can build rapport. This week we're going to be looking at how we can break rapport, not because we want to do it, but why do we think it's important to talk about breakers and be aware of what can break rapport? Thank you so much for subscribing, Lawrence. I appreciate that. I can see we've got many people tuned in. Many people are being a bit quiet. So let me know, why are rapport breakers important? So it's all about bringing the unconscious conscious. Many coaches on their journey, when they're learning, when they're training, when they're new into coaching, they might be accidentally breaking rapport through one of the 10 rapport breakers I'm going to talk you through today. And we might not want to do that. We might not be aware of that. So how do we bring this to our conscious? How do we be aware of what breaks rapport so we can avoid this as a coach and we can keep a deep level of rapport with our clients? So that's why rapport breakers are important. We need to make the unconscious conscious. We need to be aware of how we might be breaking rapport and how we can stop and prevent that going forward. We all have different ways in which we've broken rapport. I'm sure everybody who's tuned in, especially when you're learning, we will break rapport through one of these 10 breakers. So let's take a look at each of these. The first one, and probably the most obvious, is interrupting. So I can see Adele's mentioned here, it is important to create a safe space and build a relationship with a client. So 100%, it's all about creating that safe space and build a relationship with a client. And we don't want to break that, whether it's conscious or unconscious. So first one is a big interrupting. How do we feel just in general life on a day-to-day conversation when somebody interrupts when we are speaking? Now imagine we as a coach are interrupting our client when they're speaking. How are they going to feel? And sometimes interruptions, they might not be meant. We might be trying to jump in with our question. We might time our question in quite incorrectly to the point where it interrupts the client. But big interruptions can damage the rapport. It can affect the coaching relationship. So if you're a coach that's sat back thinking, but I don't interrupt, I give them the space, I listen to them, I allow them to talk, and think about how timely you are with your questions. Do you find yourself speaking at the same time as your client, which creates an interruption? How do you act after that interruption has happened? Do you still try and push and force your question? Or do you apologize, take a step back and say, please go on, continue? If so, if you're pushing your questions, if you're forcing the conversation, so let's say you go to speak at the same time, you want to ask them a bit more about their goal, and then you want to take that space and continue to ask that question, that is going to break rapport as well. This is a way in which we can interrupt without meaning, without having good intentions, but not meaning to interrupt. So think about how you time your questions and how you act when you do accidentally interrupt your clients in that space. It's not just a case of overpowering them and interrupt them with what you want to say. It's about questioning and timing those questions so we don't interrupt the flow of the session. Number 2 is fixing or imposing values. How many of us here in the audience like to be fixed? How many of us need fixing? Not many of us. As a coach, we don't see our clients as being broken, so we don't need to fix our clients. And if a client believes they need to be fixed, that is a big red flag that they need therapy or another method of support and not coaching. They're not ready for coaching. Because as a coach, we see our clients as being whole. They're just not performing to the best of their ability right now, or they're not achieving what they want to achieve right now. So how do we help them? How do we guide them? How do we direct them into their place of their full potential? The other thing there is imposing values. Now, we might disagree with what a client wants to achieve, the actions they want to take. We might disagree with the approach or the situation that they found themselves in. For example, we might be coaching someone in relationship coaching who's cheated on their partner, and they're coming to us to talk it through, to gain support. We can't impose our values if we're really against, and many of us are against cheating in a relationship. We can't impose those values. We can't tell the client what they did was incorrect. We all have different values, and as a coach, our role is to remain objective and neutral and not impose our values and tell these values to our clients. It's very important. This is very important if you are a coach who maybe is coaching cross-culture. So you're coaching somebody from a different culture, from a different background. You might feel a little bit inclined and a bit easy to impose your values. But it's about how do we become aware of this? How do we become aware where we might be imposing our values, where we believe what's right and what the client is doing wrong? There's no space for this in coaching, and it can really damage the rapport with the clients. So fixing or imposing values is rapport breaker number 2. Number 3 is judging. How many of us like to be judged? Just in our day-to-day. Somebody makes a passing comment on something you've said. We get a lot of daft comments in the comments box at times every week, judging the content that we're coming forward with today. Do we like to be judged? None of us like to be judged. Many of us like to judge, like to be on the receiving end. But there's not a space for that in coaching. And the moment we start judging our client, it goes back onto imposing values. Well, the moment we start to judge the client for their actions, what they've done, remember we're creating that safe psychological space for them to open up. They could be sharing information that they've never shared with anybody in their lives in that space. We've created that. We set those contracting rules at the beginning that everything they share is strictly confidential. And that needs to remain strictly confidential from the internal judge that we have in our mind. The moment we start to judge our clients and they feel judged, the moment the rapport starts to deteriorate. We need to remain neutral and objective as a coach with every client that we're coaching. And I can see Adele's put in the comments box here, judging can come through body language as well. Really great, important point to mention there, Adele. Sometimes we're not judging with our language. Sometimes we're judging with our eyes, with the way in which we respond through our body language. So thank you so much for that, Adele. So if you're a coach that thinks that you don't judge, be conscious of your body language, the expressions on your face, the way you react to certain information that the client shares with you. And that's not to say we have to be stone cold and not react in any certain way, but it's about meeting the reaction with the context and the information that's being shared with us. So thank you for sharing that, Adele. It's really a great point to add that in terms of the body language. Number 4, one that we're all guilty of, distractions. And we're not just talking about external distractions, our phone going off. I'm sure we're all professional enough as coaches to turn our phones off or put them on silent before we go into a coaching session. Make sure we've got our technology set up, our laptop plugged in so the battery doesn't die, and everything connected, our Wi-Fi, strong connection on the Wi-Fi. Getting that, granted, technology happens at times, but hopefully we're professional enough to start to manage those external distractions. But it's all about the internal distractions as well. What's that mind chatter telling us? Are we putting pressure on ourselves to think of the perfect question? Are we distracted by something that's happened outside of the coaching session? Are we bringing baggage into that space where we can't give our clients our full attention? These are questions we want to ask. And also when it comes to external distractions, a professional coach won't only just turn off their phone and manage their distractions, they'd set those boundaries at the beginning of the coaching session to manage the client's distractions. So I learned this quite early on in my coaching profession when I started the career back in, this was 2017. I was coaching a client in person and I didn't ask them to turn their phone off or put their phone on silent. And their phone went off during the coaching session, which affected the whole flow and damaged the rapport. So as a professional coach, we need to learn to also ask our clients to manage their distractions. So distractions are key. If we don't manage our distractions, there's a huge risk that we're going to break the rapport with the clients, whatever that may be. We must work. We do a whole module on this in Coaching Minds to be fully present with our clients. Number 5, how many of us make assumptions? How many of us assume that we've seen this scenario or this context, or we've helped clients with this goal in the past before, so it must be the same? We know the questions we want to ask. We know the models and frameworks that we want to bring. We know that path to help this client get to where they want to be because we've already done it with someone else before. How many of us are conscious of the assumptions that we make? How many assumptions do you make in your day-to-day lives? Because we jump. Our brain just filters for information and we jump to assumptions. But unfortunately, in a coaching context, in a one-to-one session with a client, or even in group coaching or team coaching, assumptions will break and damage rapport. It's said that if we assume, we make an ass out of you and me. One of the quotes that I really love, I think it's really, really strong, and one that we should keep in terms of an affirmation whenever we coach. So assumptions is a big no-go when it comes to building rapport. If we assume, we break that rapport. Number 6, a need to be right, or how I like to say this, a lack of humility. So maybe we've asked an incorrect question. Maybe we haven't phrased something right. Maybe we've mixed up some of the notes or what the client said previously. Do we have the humility? And can we be humble enough to say, I apologize, sorry, I've mixed this up. Pardon me. Or do we have this need to be right? We don't want to look incompetent to our clients. No, we definitely looked at this. We definitely talked about this. I'm sure we did. No, the question was fine. I'm going to ask it again. Which approach are we taking? Do we have a need to be right as an individual? And generally those that fall into the trap of wanting to give advice fall into the trap of it needing to be right as well with the advice that they give. If a client pushes back and challenges advice and we want to feel like it needs to be right, remember, we don't give advice as a client. That's coming up soon as another rapport breaker. But that need to be right can really force and damage the relationship. Adele is saying, always use the client's words, avoid inserting or using your own words. So that goes back to need to be right, and also assumptions as well, Adele. One of the things that we're learning, this is a really good point that you've mentioned there, because one of the things when we're learning to be a coach, what we can tend to do is when we reflect back to our clients and we're trying to summarize what it is they're saying, we can insert our own assumptions and our own leading questions based on what we've heard. And this, again, can come from a need to be right. And why I say this is because as a coach, what we should be doing, instead of summarizing, if there's a lot of information and we want to summarize, we should always put that summary in the form of a clarity question or a clarifying question. So what I'm hearing or what I'm understanding is this, and this. Is that correct? And that way, we're not putting assumptions in there. We're playing the words, as you mentioned, Adele, we're playing the client's words back to them in a summarized version, but we're checking that what we've understood is correct. And we're not making assumptions. So thank you for sharing that, Adele. Really useful point. Number 7 is unsolicited advice. Put it in the comments box. Say yes, no. How many of us hate it when somebody gives us advice that we never asked for? We see it all the time on social media. We put a post out there, someone will put a comment, it's unsolicited advice. Who cares what they say? Who cares what they said? But they want to insert their opinion anyway. How many of us like advice? Put in the comments box. But yes, I like advice. No, I can't stand it. I can't stand it when people give me unsolicited advice. People always have an opinion, always have a thought on what you should be doing and how you should be performing and what you shouldn't do. People are full of unsolicited advice. And in a coaching space, this is going to be one of the biggest rapport breakers. The moment you try and tell a client what they should be doing, where they're going wrong, you're going to damage your rapport. Because remember, as a coach, we don't give advice. Unsolicited, or even when a client asks for it, we don't give them advice. It's not our role. We put trust in, our wholehearted trust into our clients, that they know where they are and they know what they want to do and what they want to achieve. It's just a little bit foggy or a little bit misty for them right now. And our role is to ask those questions to clear the fog, to help them see those next steps forward and help them come up with their own answers. Adele is saying, I don't like it at all. Rather ask me a reflective question. 100%. Lots of us prefer to be asked a reflective question rather than given advice. Donna says it depends where it's coming from. There's certain areas that we go for advice. We go for a lawyer to advice. We go to a doctor for advice. But even doctors, myself and Adele were having an interesting conversation earlier today in our meeting about how doctors approach things modern day times, and how actually a coaching approach might be a little bit better to actually find out what's going on for you rather than jump into conclusions and telling you what is wrong with you without doing any tests. Doctors, we found, have a habit of going to everything being psychological before actually moving things forward. But that's a little bit off piste. We go to doctors for advice. We go to lawyers for advice. But this isn't unsolicited. Unsolicited when somebody just wants to put in their 2 cents without being asked, without being invited. And that's not what we should be doing as a coach. And as a coach, even when a client asks us for advice, we need to steer that back by asking a question, rephrasing a question, helping them see things from a different perspective. Now, one of the biggest rapport builders that you'll see, now, if you're a coach that's been practicing for a while, and maybe you get clients for a discovery session, they don't book with you, or you have them for 1 or 2 sessions and they walk away, this is most likely down to some form of misrepresentation. Now, I put fake news on here. It has nothing to do with fake news, but that's the easiest way to do a generalization of misrepresentation, is when we're given fake news. So this is where we're over-promising and we're under-delivering. A lot of fake coaches in the profession, I'm going to say they're not really sitting within our profession, but those coaches on social media, what I call the Frosty the Tiger coaches, who don't have any certifications, they will tell you and promise you that they can change the world. They'll promise you you can get certain results. They will promise you the world, and they'll fail to deliver. This is what's known as misrepresentation. So as soon as you get in a room with that client and you've promised them this, this, and this, and you can't deliver it, because we should never promise as a coach to deliver anything, because the work is done by the client. The moment we start to overpromise and underdeliver, it doesn't have to be something as grand as I mentioned there, but just saying that we're going to send them the notes by Friday and they're waiting 2 weeks for the notes. Anything that we promise and don't deliver is a form of misrepresentation. A lot of coaches who don't have qualifications have a habit of calling themselves master, manifestation, gratitude, XYZ, super duper califragilistic coaches on their titles to really try and sell themselves. And all that is misrepresentation. And when a client gets in the room with you and feels that there's a lack of misrepresentation and that you're not all that, you're going to really damage and break rapport. Number 9, so I'm going to go through these last two quickly because, again, I've gone over the 20 minutes. I need to start to talk less and get through the content a little bit more so I can finish on the 20-minute mark. But number 9 is a big one, is fear. Now, sometimes as coaches, we might feel a lack of confidence. We might feel a bit of fear because of the situation or the context that's being shared with us in our coaching space. But sometimes that fear can be observed and seen by a client. So if we feel like we're a little bit incompetent, if we feel that we don't have the right skills or the right models, that's okay. That's understand. That's part of natural human feelings. It's how we act from that, how we act upon this fear. Now, if something feels outside of our area of competence, it usually is. So how do we get that support for ourselves if we want to continue coaching, because we feel like parts of it are remaining within our competency, but other parts aren't? So for example, maybe you start coaching a client about their next step in their career, and all of a sudden they disclose that they've gone through some trauma with you. Can you still coach them on their career whilst also helping them gain extra support on their trauma? That is possible. That is why we have supervision. How do you get that support and that help through supervision? Through talking to peers, through your networks. So fear is natural, and sometimes it is a sign that maybe it is outside of our area of competence, and we need to refer them, we need to find an alternative method of support. Sometimes it's just in the form of self-doubt or being judged or feeling that we're not good enough. So how do we take that away as a coach, and how do we work on that as an individual? How do we develop ourselves to remove that fear so we can step into our coaching sessions with confidence? Reflective questions for you to ask. Adele's saying also stay within your competency, be honest with the client. If it is outside of your competency, rather do a soft transfer. Exactly, Adele, that sums up what I've just shared there. Thank you so much for putting that into the comments box. And then last but not least, this is where I've been guilty a few times, not just with clients. I think it's happened once with a client, but tends to happen in my professional connections, is you can break rapport with humor. So whilst it is the deepest level, you can have a laugh, you can have a joke with certain individuals, and if they meet your level of humor, it's the deepest level of rapport that you can connect. But equally, one mistimed joke, one joke that doesn't meet the humor of the other individual can destroy your rapport. What it's taken you months to build can be destroyed in seconds by a silly joke. Now, I'm a big joker. I like to play practical jokes. I like to be engaged with people who have wit, where we can take the mick out of each other. We can have a little bit of joke. We don't take life so seriously, but not everyone is that way. So for me, this has been the biggest rapport breaker that I've had to work on, and I'm still having to work on. I think I push the boundaries and go a little bit over the mark with some of the articles that I post every week, but that's just me. I like to have a laugh. I love watching comedy movies and sitcoms and comedy series in my own time, because if we don't have a laugh, we're going to cry. Life becomes difficult. We need to lighten the load a little bit. So this is something I work on personally, because I know that it has damaged relationship and rapport with certain people with me in the past. And I think it takes time for you to get to know me, that I'm a joker, that I like to have a laugh. And I know many people we have at Coaching Minds are the same. And it works. I gel with people who like to have a laugh and don't take life too seriously. But I need to understand, and I need to work personally on this to not damage connections and networks. So I'm fully aware of this and I'm working on it, but also there needs to be a bit of give and take with it as well. Now, I've just been honest with mine, so I'm going to be honest with you. Your question for you to be honest as well. You don't have to put this in the chat, but note this down. Which one of these 10 have you done in the last week, or within the last month if you haven't coached this week. But think about where you've maybe interrupted somebody, where you've maybe been distracted by something that's happened in your life or before your session. Think about where you've judged somebody, where you've assumed something. Think about where you've cracked an inappropriate joke. Which one of these 10 have you done in the last week? Something for you to think about. And then finally, I've also shared with you which one I'm working on to remove, but I'm not working to remove it fully because humor is one that I think really helps, and it has deepened some really strong connections and relationships for me. But which one will you work to remove this week? You just stop giving advice in your coaching sessions, or stop giving advice to people in general. One tip that I can give you as a coach in training is not to leave preventing giving advice for your coaching sessions. Catch yourself doing it in your general conversations. We love to give advice as humans, to friends, to colleagues, to managers, to people who we meet in the street, to family members. Rein it back. Prevent yourself from giving advice to people in general, not just clients. It really works wonders. We all go through that transition. A lot of us get into coaching because people come to us for advice and we think that they're the right person. We need to actually step away from that. Interruptions, Adele, a lot of interruptions. They can be external. How do we manage those interruptions? We've had somebody, they're going to daft comments, so we're just going to, RVG Trader, we're just going to ban him and delete him. You can see people have problems. Again, the judging, the assumptions, daft comments. As I always say, there's no such thing as stupid questions, just stupid people, and RVG Traders was definitely one of those stupid people. So we've got Adele removing interruptions. I'm working on humor, still working on how I keep this and keep the boundary. And Donna's saying this is why it's important to have supervision, so you can unpack this and deliver the best care possible for the client. Indeed, Donna, we really all need supervision to see. Sometimes we get blind spots as a coach, and it's important to start to observe those blind spots and get help from external supervisors as part of that. So which one will you remove this week? And if you want to learn more, if you want to go deeper into this, we do have a book called Coaching Essentials. You can also scan the QR code. I'm going to announce we have a brand new coaching resources page on our website. So if you scan the QR code in the left corner there, that will take you to our website. You can get a whole suite of free coaching resources that includes information on what we're covering today, and you can get access to the previous Coachology in 20 sessions. You can get access to some of our ebooks. You can get access to certain tools. There's a lot there. There's quizzes, assessments, self-assessments for you as well. So we created a whole brand new coaching resources section on our website. So if you want to learn more between each session, each week, that is the QR code. If you like something like me, if you like something a bit more hard copy in your hand, you've got the QR code on the screen there for our Coaching Essentials book. So if you like to learn in the old-fashioned way with a hard copy book, you can scan this QR code and it will take you to our Coaching Essentials book, which has detailed and more detailed information on everything that I've covered today. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Thank you to Adele and Donna for engaging in the comments and sharing your thoughts and perspectives. Really, really appreciate it. And for those who have watched quietly and taken some notes in the background, I can see you here and thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you next week, where we're going to start to look at empathy in coaching, how the difference between empathy and sympathy, and how we manage the level of empathy we give to our clients so we don't become emotionally involved and it doesn't take up too much of our energy. I look forward to seeing you next week for our next episode of Coachology in 20. Have a good week. Thank you.